Information, education, motivation, real life, real topics. Welcome to Cayman Conversations, now streaming on Caymanian Times Facebook and YouTube channels, and also live on Bobo FM 89.1. We recently spoke with Daniel Coleman, Onisha Richards, and John Tibbetts about hurricane preparedness, the forecasts, communication during hurricane season, and post-hurricane survival. Here's that conversation. Daniel, can you tell us what you do with hazard management?
Okay, so hazard management for hello for all the listeners today. So hazard management, we're responsible for coordination of any national emergency. So obviously hurricane season is our biggest threat in the Cayman Islands. However, we also work with things from migration to oil spills to fire to earthquakes, tsunamis, anything that could become emergency of a big proportion. A lot of the agencies will focus, if it's a road traffic accident, for example, it may only be the police service or it may be the fire. But a lot of the times, because of our resources on the island, become multi-agency, and that's where we get involved because we do a lot of coordination of that.
Yes. And I remember having many meetings during the pandemic.
Pandemic meetings, yes, sorry, and pandemics,
yes. Yes. Okay. Onisha, can you just give us an idea of what you do?
Sure. So I have the pleasure of being responsible for communications for the government. We sit in the cabinet office. So we're a Department of Communications. A lot of people are familiar with GIS. In 2021, the government made the decision to coordinate all communications. So we have the Strategic Communications Unit, what was known as GIS, and then internal communications all sit in what is now Department of Communications. So I have the pleasure of heading up that team and function. I think particularly for your listeners today is our function when it comes to crises. So what we're responsible for, of course, in those times is to ensure individuals are aware of what's happening, giving them safety information that can keep themselves and their families safe, and ensuring that's done on an ongoing and timely basis. So we head up the Joint Communication Services for the government, and that is an activated agency once there is a crisis declared. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do. It's really hard to kind of put it into a couple of words because depending
important job.
Yeah, depending on the hazard, is how we act. But we have a really strong team. Communication Services is not just a Department of Comms. Once we activate in that function, all communicators across the public sector become a part of the structure to help us make sure all those messages are going out accurately and timely.
Okay, that's good.
I think just to add to that, I mean, Anisha does it, again, it's a tremendous, communication is such an important aspect when it comes to any kind of large-scale emergency. So sometimes obviously hazard management morphs into what we call the National Emergency Operations Center, and we coordinate that, but that's, again, multi-agency. But fully activated with all the 19 emergency support teams. Yeah. A lot of the times it'll be much smaller. It'll be ourselves and a few other agencies, a few teams under the National Emergency Operations Center. Communications is always going to be one of those because communications in any emergency is absolutely critical. If the gap's not being filled by government and the official sources, obviously there's a big reach for, people to fill the gap. And I think communications is absolutely critical in any emergency. Consistent messaging across the entire government and again shared with the wider public.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Thanks.
And we could spend a little more time on communication while John gets ready to talk about the actual weather itself and the preparation for the hurricane season and what we should do. But one of the reasons that I'm here in media is because I'm really concerned about the level and the function of media in getting the message out. Because I understand, and I'm sure you agree, that it is important to get the right information all the time to the right people. And so, Onisha, just speak to that, please, how important it is that the information is accurately given and at the right time.
That is critical because information at the right time, we know, saves lives, right? So it's incredibly important. And it's incredibly important that people in the media like yourselves are able to support us in ensuring that things are accurate. I think a lot of the struggle that the public has, and it's normal for any public, is that they want things, immediately or almost before it was thought of in some cases. But we're very, very focused on ensuring that it's accurate, because accurate information is what's going to be important. So I think, when we talk about communications, particularly as they go with crises, we're trying to be as timely as possible. And we're definitely going to be accurate. That's our goal. One of the things that we know has been more beneficial for us, and we've changed over the past kind of 2 years, is to also have a frequency. Danny kind of mentioned that rhythm. And I think that the community can rely on the fact that we let them know that every 6 hours we're going to say something, even if there's nothing to say, just so they also get used to the rhythm of when will you get information, at least on an ongoing basis. We work closely with Radio Cayman as well to make sure that avenue we're putting out the same type of message. So there's consistency as well. The last thing we want for the community is that they're hearing different things in different places. So one of the strong points that we have from a JCS perspective is to ensure that all government is sending out the same information, and we're trusting our media partners to be in that with us, so that we're sending out the same accurate information.
Pivots, John. We were just asking our guests to just give a little description of the role and your responsibilities. Can you help us here?
Well, as head of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, I am the lead voice, as it were, for the Meteorological Authority for the Cayman Islands. So a big part of my role is involved in monitoring the Atlantic Ocean, and especially the Caribbean Sea force systems that may present some inclement weather that may be dangerous to the general public. And we not only pass that information on to the media sources, we also pass those on to HMCI and the communication team on some of the larger level systems, certainly. We wouldn't necessarily pass on, like, let's say you got a cold front coming, unless the cold front is a major one that is going to produce waves that are going to compromise the road traffic or the coastal road on Saginaw Beach. And part of that job also involves looking at the making sure that we get the impacts down correct, and that we pass that information on as well.
Okay. Thank you, John. We were just talking about communication and how important it is, and as just while we're waiting, and Misha gave her a little contribution. Can you just let us know how you feel about communication and the importance to get the right information at the right time?
Communication is absolutely critical. And I think when you're looking at the government agencies now, the government agencies are now having a communications officer as part of the team. Okay, so when you compose in the ministry, you must have a communications officer, so that the messages that are coming out from the ministry, coming out from the departments in that ministry, are all vetted and presented in the correct manner. Now, year in and year out, we continue to fight with other meteorological experts that post things on YouTube and Facebook and what have you, and they have a tendency to excite the public when there really isn't no need for excitement. Their forecasters have a tendency to forecast whatever the weather model says. They take it as gospel. And yet, in my experience, and if you ask any of the weather forecasters inside there, they will tell you that the weather models are often wrong. There are numerous times when they have forecasted massive hurricanes, massive rain events to come across the Cayman Islands, and nothing happens. Not only does nothing happen, but nothing up. You know, from the Weather Service's point of view, as the director of the Weather Service, the weather model can tell me there's a strong low coming through, but I got to see that low form first, okay? Because I know the errors in the models, okay? And it isn't going to make good sense for us to be constantly crying wolf when there's no wolf, okay? And these are the meteorologists who are posting things on YouTube. Please understand something. They really have no accountability when you sit down and think about it, because no matter how many times they're wrong, the Cayman general public are not going to go and says they're wrong. They'll say they're wrong when the National Weather Service says they're wrong, because it is my job for the Cayman Islands people. It's my job for the Cayman Islands government. That is my role. All right. They are doing this on a private venture on the side, and there are no penalties for them being wrong.
Okay.
Okay. There are potential penalties for us in terms of our public not necessarily listening to us.
Yeah.
All right. And not reacting to warnings when we issue them. So that's the situation that we're in.
Okay. Danny, can you give us your input on this, please?
I think John's got a great point. And at the end of the day, we can't be crying wolf all the time. We have to have a reasonable expectation that we're going to get impacted. But of course, with climate change and other things, things change very, very quickly. It's a very, very dynamic playing field. When we're talking about storms in particular here, it's a very dynamic playing field. So that information getting out, verified, and again, we are following it and consistently updating it is absolutely critical. I think John and I do both have the same pet peeve when it comes to these models that come and stress everyone out and actually have no factual basis. Because at the end of the day, I think everyone's got enough stress in their lives these days. We certainly don't want to add to that. And I think one of the biggest things is to constantly put that stress out there. And of course, when you do have the big storms that, are actually happening, you become so exhausted from the whole thing. You're not actually going to respond as you should do. So we are very, very careful when we do any kind of, activation of sorts through the forecasting and again, through the National Emergency Operations Centre to know that there really is a risk. I say that, but I also say, we have over the last few years erred on the side of caution. So whereas sometimes in the past, we may not have activated because it's a tropical storm, or we may not have activated because, it wasn't anything of significant threat. We've actually changed that a bit over the last few years. And I think maybe COVID's made us a bit more sensitive to things, but also Tropical Storm Grace. I mean, again, that was much more impact than I think a lot of people expected, including ourselves, I think. So I think we've always, as the National Emergency Operations Centre, we tend to plan ahead, make sure we're ready to go and activate. But again, if things calm down during the night or things change dramatically, we will deactivate very quickly. We'd rather go full out and then pare back. And at the very least, it's a great training exercise for all of us working together, getting the best possible scenario. I mean, for COVID is a great example. I mean, obviously it was a pandemic as opposed to a storm, but we were activated for 104 days. So we've changed a lot over the last couple of years as to how we work together and how we are streamlined and how we're making sure we're getting the best out of our multi-agency response. We've done a lot more training even this year with all our key players in the National Emergency Operations Centre. So I think there's that I wouldn't ever call anything's over preparing. I think it's being ready, being very ready to go no matter what the emergency is. But again, paring back and being constantly reassessing that situation. And I think that again for the public, we strongly encourage the public to do the same thing. If there is a storm coming, for example, and it looks only to be a tropical storm, well, just be aware that can change very dramatically, very, very quickly. And I think, again, with climate change, we're seeing this rapid intensification much more so than we have done in the past.
Okay, thank you. I mean, we're going to get back into those details in a bit, but let's talk about the weather. We are now into June, in that time of year when we all prepare for the worst,
No,
for
well,
the
let me
best.
correct you for that. We prepared that the whole year, not
Yes,
just June.
always prepared.
Always prepared, always prepared. Right. Well, Mr. John, we're gonna call you back on, on the front stage again. Just to let us know what are we expecting, or what are the plans for this year, or what are the forecasts for this year.
Okay, so when the experts are out there looking to produce a prediction for the season, they start to look at the various atmospheric factors that determine hurricanes and the level of the hurricanes for the season. So first on the agenda is usually the El Nino La Nina cycle. Okay. So all of the predictions up until this point have said, hey, listen, we're forecasting that an El Nino will will develop this year. Okay. This morning I got a message from NOAA. NOAA is now officially advising us that that is no longer a forecast. That is now a fact. The El Nino is here. Okay. Now, what is El Nino and what does it do? All right. The El Nino is basically a warming of the eastern Pacific Ocean. Okay. That it has on the Atlantic basin is generally it has a tendency to cap the development of the hurricane season. Okay. It usually produces wind shear. Okay. And the wind shear has a tendency to tear apart thunderstorms, which are the lifeblood of hurricanes. Okay. So, congratulations. I gave you the good news part of this. There's a little bit of bad news on it. And that is there's a competing situation, and that is that the sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean are above normal. Okay, so we got one thing fighting against an active season, and something else fighting for an active season. All right, and we're going to kind of have to see how this plays out. In the sense that we're going to need to see where exactly and how extensive the wind shear patterns are with regards to the El Nino pattern. And we're going to see how that impacts the various systems as they try to form up. In terms of the prediction, we look at two different sources. We look at Colorado State, and we look at NOAA. Okay, NOAA says we're going to have an average season. Colorado State says we're going to have an average season. Now, I will tell you that the April forecast that came out from Colorado actually had the named storms, the hurricanes, and the major hurricanes all below the average numbers. Their June prediction brings them up a little bit. So the prediction from Colorado State, June forecast, named storms, 15, hurricanes, 7, major hurricanes, 3. Now, if I'm looking at the long-term averages, that 50 is just over the average. The average is 14.4. The average of major hurricanes is 7.2. So the prediction on the number of hurricanes is actually a smidget below. And then the major hurricanes, the long-term average is 3.2. Prediction at 3. So we kind of have almost a pure definition of what an average season was. There's very little difference between what the long-term averages is and what is being predicted. Okay. Now, note, obviously, season gets very interesting. The first tropical system that was regarded by the National Hurricane Center for this season actually happened in January. Okay. And then we have Arlene developing in the Gulf of Mexico and doing all kind of scary things and what have you. But at the end of the day, it dissipated and did not cause us any trouble. So we will now continue on and wait for the next system to form.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. John. Onisha, communication. Um, is this information being passed out to the community regarding the preparations, the forecasts, and what is your feedback from the community? Are they accepting it? Are they getting enough information? In your experience, is the information that is being put out reaching the audiences that they should reach? And what are their feedback?
Yeah, so, the team has been doing a good job at the start of the season talking about the forecast, what's expected. I kind of wanted to go back a little bit to what John was talking about too, in terms of, a lot of, I like to call them amateur. I'm sure there's a specific them, John, in terms of people on YouTube giving out weather. One of the things that we've been kind of really tackling and wanting to share with the community and continue to share with the community is official weather sources for the Cayman Islands. Because it's extremely important that as you're talking about getting ready for the season, as something approaches, that, we all know that the population's curious. We get information from a lot of different places. We're not saying that you won't do that or shouldn't do that, but that you trust the information that's coming from official sources. So I just kind of wanted to go back to that. We know people are in those areas and they're listening. We're actually going to be pushing out content throughout the rest of the season that's specifically about getting ready. Some of the messages that I think most people tend to not think about is that, the makeup of our population. So those of us who've been through this a couple of times, we feel quite comfortable to know what we need to do. But there are many, many people on island who call this home, who've never been through a very strong storm or don't know how to prepare. So we spend a lot of time explaining the things that you should have in your kit. We have robust websites. There's lots of social media. There'll be a number of other pieces that are printed that are sent out throughout the season. We also work with various departments to get that information to individuals who may be vulnerable or get information slightly more traditional. So there's a multifaceted way that we continue to tell the public how to be prepared. One of the simple messages that we'll be pushing very strong this year is have a radio. We know it's not something that people tend to have anymore. We do everything on our phones or on our computer, but in the midst of a storm, you want to save batteries and you still need to get that information. And we know radio works. So there's some, we have key messages, what to have in your hurricane kit, how to stay prepared. But then we're particularly focused on those individuals who may not understand what preparation means just because they haven't experienced it before. So you'll see us spending a lot of time in areas where we feel new residents may actually be getting information as well.
Okay, very good.
And then I know Danny would be remiss if I didn't mention NEANS. We continue to tell individuals do sign up for the emergency alert system. It's a way to get information. So during, we would use that system, not necessarily, we would not use it for preparation, but we definitely use it for the alert phases. So it's something that you should have. And the site for all of this information will be Cayman Prepared. So we continue to support our friends in hazard management. That's the main website for information about preparing for hazards in the Cayman Islands. In the event of a threat, you will see that site change very quickly to giving you all information you need, all in the same space, live updates, as well as contact information. And the public is familiar with that website, so we feel strongly like that's the right avenue for people to continue to look at. It's caymanprepared.ky.
Yes. Before I go to Danny, as a owner of a media house, I just want to know that we have a responsibility to make sure that we get the right information at the right time. Sometimes we get tempted to get clickbait, so we get activity on our websites. And I understand the business model for that as well. But we have to take responsibility. We have to act responsible, especially in these disasters, because we can make it worse by putting the wrong information out at the wrong time. And so as a media owner, I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to set the example and say, guys, we need to do the right thing. We need to know the source and stick with the source and depend on the source and stop making up our own stories to try and get clicks and which happens, and I'm honest with it. So so as media, we're gonna take our responsibility seriously.
And to that point, our team is always available to the media. And you guys know that we continue to ensure you have
Yes.
access directly to us. So, even if it's a matter of you're feeling very pressured about information, you can come directly to us so we can give you as much as possible. No, of course, we're going to be accurate, but we're here for the media as well. Like, I think everybody needs to realize that it's not a closed off type of situation. We work in partnership with you.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right, Danny. Hazard management. How do you manage hazards, especially in hurricane season? Yes, we're thinking about hurricanes right now, but you might have an earthquake. These things happen. You might have another
Yeah.
disaster. How do you cope? Do you have an assistant that will take over for the hurricane season, or you're still in charge? You still have the groups coming together. How do you manage this?
Okay, so we have a saying here at Hazard Management that teamwork makes the dream work, right? So I think, it's a massive collaboration. Yes, Hazard Management are the coordinating body of the structure, and we do this day in, day out, no matter what it is. And I know back in the day, people used to say to me, what do you do for the other 6 months of the year when you haven't got hurricanes? And I'm like, we are multi-hazard. So any hazard that happens in Cayman, we are pretty much involved. Even the other day with the explosion, there's so many different aspects of it. Migration, Cuban migration, we've been involved heavily with that over the last year and a half or so. So there's lots of things that go on behind the scenes that no one sees, be it exercises, trainings, shelters. I mean, we have 19 shelters across the islands, and Hazard Management is responsible for all those shelters. Relief supplies. We have containers full of relief supplies. Even the emergency field hospital from COVID belongs to NEAC. Oh, beautiful list. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ralph. So there's a lot that goes on behind managing hazards. But again, going back to it, it is about teamwork. We have to work together. We have to make sure we work well with our colleagues, because there's one thing, when we can, in normal days, blue skies like today, or grayish skies today, you can get on with your job. But unless we have those great relationships, it really does go a bit south during an emergency, because you're exhausted. You may not have slept for a number of hours. You're just on the go. So I think those kind of relationships, and I know, Anisha and John, we're all joined at the hip during any emergency, and we do have a great relationship. So I think it's those relationships across the whole national emergency structure. And it's not just the Emergency Operations Centre. We have the executive, which is the cabinet and the Commissioner of Police, and obviously is chaired by the Premier and the Governor. We have the policy group, which is deputies and so forth, chief officers, and chaired by the Deputy Governor. And then, of course, we have the council. So there's 4 different groups there that we have to help coordination of through hazard management. But those relationships are really very solid. And we're also very keen to make sure that mental health is very much part of that. So mental health has been incorporated into the structure as of about 3 years ago. Ironically, just before COVID, we worked very, very closely with Dipna Carter, who's HSA psychiatric nurse, and she's been a massive valuable asset, because not only do decisions with the mental health hat on, but also she kind of gives us a nod when we're not making much sense. If we need that support ourselves, because I think none of us are superheroes, and we all need that support. And I think it's that that those kind of friendships or relationships that can say, okay, I think it's time you took a break and you need to go, because you need time out for, even if it's 10 minutes, just to breathe and just have a bit of mental health check-in with yourself. But just go back to what Anisha was talking about in regards to communications. There's so much that goes on at this time of year, but also throughout the year. But we're in schools the whole time doing school drills. In March, we did a significant number of emergency drills in schools for earthquakes and tsunamis. I know for this month, we've been in the DIY shops across the island every weekend to talk about people's elevation and where they'd shelter, and obviously downloading the Needs app. So a lot of that community outreach. In service clubs, we do a lot of work in, going to Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, and so forth, making sure that everyone there's, ready to go and prepared for whatever it is. And again, this next couple of weeks, we've been doing, and the last couple of weeks, a lot of work with elderly people. So you're talking about the more vulnerable people. Obviously, elderly people, caretakers of the elderly. So there's about, I think there's about 8 to 10 presentations with the elderly. One's happening tonight, actually. And that's very much in collaboration with the Department of Children and Family Services. So there's a lot going on. But talking about the targeting and the messaging, I mean, we have to make sure that stuff, when we talk about hurricane season, it's not boring. The last thing we want is the same old messaging every year that everyone just rolls their eyes and go, oh God, not you guys again, please, give us a break. So we're trying to make our messaging, again, with the help of the whole comms team, very dynamic and very sort of like fresh and funky. And every year it's got, how is it stomachable again this year? Slightly different change on the wording. And one of the great things, again, work that we did was led by the comms team, was a survey this year about hurricane messaging. And again, a lot of that's been targeting. What we're doing now is as a result of the feedback we got there. So we are always listening to the public as to how they're hearing it and if they're listening to it. And again, how we can make our services better. We always want that feedback.
Okay, thank you. Very well. Before I go to Mr. John for this next question, how do the superheroes deal with their family lives in a crisis?
I won't lie to you.
Danny, you go first.
I won't lie to you. But I will say, when we had the earthquake in 2020, my stepdaughter called me up and she's like, have you forgotten about me? Because it was after hours. I think it was at 4 o'clock. And I'm like, now we have a no lying policy in our house. So I'm like, well, I have to be frank. I said, my headspace is in my job. And I don't want to, I relied on her teachers to make sure that she was safe. Yes. But it's often a really difficult balance. And unfortunately, often the family have to take the back seat when it comes to emergencies. But the more prepared they are and ready to go, and we make sure that's happening throughout the whole year and that they're self-sufficient and they get on with it, the better. And I think it's just so important. But unfortunately, the job is a job, and this is kind of what we signed up for when we signed up for it.
Anisha,
it takes a village. That's all I say. Our son, the dog, is very used to their family members just showing up and say, hey, you're coming with us. In our household, we have 2 superheroes. So the dog and the son's usually being taken care of by someone else. So I'd say it's definitely the village. But to Danny's point, it's what we sign up for. It is exciting. It makes the job rewarding as well. So it's not something that, I'm whining about. But it takes a village. And I will always say that people need to have strong support in whatever role they're in. But definitely in this one, you need that.
Thank you. Mr. John? How do you manage? You're in there 24/7, sometimes 36 hours. How do you manage family life?
Well, I have 2 families. I have my blood family. I got my National Weather Service family, and they got my back. I really haven't produced a weather forecast for the Cayman Islands since about 2014. Mm-hmm. And I've got a fantastic team behind me. It's headed up by my chief meteorologist, Mr. Kerry Powery. And if there's somebody that wears a Superman cape, it is Mr. Powery. He has all of my respect in the world. And yet he's not the only one. Regretfully this year, as of the end of June, change will be coming to the National Weather Service in that the individual that I have worked with the longest in my career will be retiring, and that's Mr. Avalon Porter. So we will be wishing him, I don't think he's going to quite leave. He's going to probably come back or something. Okay. But, it's a sign of the changing times. In fact, one of the mistakes I made this year is I didn't go out to A.L. Thompson's to buy myself some rope to tie myself down for this year. Because, there's a whole lot going on in the Weather Service. And, getting the family dealt with is very important. I remember when Hurricane Ivan came, I was blessed in the sense that the NEOC was really the fire department. Mm-hmm. And the fire department is where my older brother worked. Yes. And my wife and my kids had gone up to Bordentown to ride out the hurricane. And they had an evacuation, and guess what? They all ended up down there at the Georgetown Fire Station with me, and
Yes.
that was certainly a load off my shoulder that my family could be there with me. And I mean, regardless of during the storm, I still don't have time to spend with them. But you know, it is what it is. So
Yes.
I have to admit, during any hurricane, John, I think I become your work wife. And I know I'm much bossier to John than our Kathy is. So I think he's always happy at the all clear. Not so much the all clear, but the fact that I'm no longer bossing him around.
Well, I've heard the passion and the commitment. I want to thank you all for what you do and the sacrifices that you've made. And I think the country is a better place with individuals such as yourself. Mr. John, next question.
Yeah.
I have a concern about complacency. We get all ready for a hurricane or storm. It doesn't happen. The next time around, people become complacent. Is that something that you're concerned about as well?
Always. Amazingly enough, I started my career in the mid 1980s, and the top thing on our plate at that time was the fact that we had not been hit by a major storm for a while. And so we were very concerned about complacency, about people not taking things, taking the threat very seriously. And I dare say, since we've become a National Weather Service and hazards management is formed and what have you, I've seen some storms that I've gone through, and Foster's has basically had to, I don't want to say kick them out the door, okay? But they have people, residents of the country, going into Foster's when tropical storm force or winds are hitting, okay? And if you want to define complacency, that's how you define it. Because the reality of the situation is that you don't know if those heavy thunder showers might hit, and you might not be able to drive safely back to your home. You might be just taking into consideration just the storm force winds. What about places like South Sound, where the sea came across the road in a number of our recent storms? Okay, did your plan to get back home, might it have gone through that region? Okay, the gully in Savannah. Okay, we had an incident. It's with Hurricane Mitch, and Hurricane Mitch didn't come here, but it was 200 miles away and cost us about $14 million worth of damage. But one of the things that was very, very, very significant, and people need to listen to this very carefully, and that is Hurricane Mitch activated the gully. Okay, and it's more than just the road flooding. It's the water flowing like a river. Okay, and there was an incident that I remembered when Hurricane Mitch was threatening the area, and that was there was a very small car carrying a family crossed by Domino's Pizza where the gully comes out, and the force of the moving water was pushing the car into the trench on the side of the road, and the police and the fire department had to come there and rescue them. Okay, these things you need to take into consideration. You cannot wait until the last minute. It is not advisable. Okay, during the storm, one of the things I preached in terms of some of our meetings is if you're deciding to go in a shelter, you make sure that you're in that shelter before those tropical storm force winds hit. All right. When Ivan was here, we had people crying out to the NEOC, come and save us. And the emergency people at the fire department, if they now go out to save you, they endanger their lives. Yeah. Okay? You need to be in shelters. Those decisions need to be made before the storm, not when the storm is hitting. All right? And of course, because we have things like rapid development, you should always be thinking this is a major storm. Always. I don't want to say I don't care what the National Weather Service says, because I'm pretty sure you listen to me. But if we say it's a tropical wave, a tropical depression, or a tropical storm, you might go like, oh, that's weak. Well, what did Grace teach us? Grace taught us that what? Don't take a tropical storm for granted. Okay? So we need to respect nature, and we need to act soon, and we need to not be complacent that we are going to cause other people to endanger their lives to correct your mistake.
Yeah. And your points are very, very well taken, and I encourage everyone to take those warnings very seriously, because we never know. Well, folks, it's been a real pleasure for me to be here. I wish I could be here for another 45 minutes, but maybe we can have a part two to talk about a lot more of these topics. I think is very important. So if you can give me your final words, each of you, and what your wishes for this hurricane season will be. Starting with you, Anisha.
Thanks for having us, Ralph. This is a great conversation. It's always good to talk about these topics, and with my friends from Hazard Management and John over at National Weather Service. So thank you for the opportunity. From our side of communications, I really want to urge people to tune into official sources, absolutely, and continue to prepare for the season. There's lots of messaging, and people do add information in the absence of information. So being able to go back to check to where the official news is most important. So I just want to leave that as a tidbit, that always go to, whether it's caymanprepared.ky. We'll also have messages on gov.ky. Radio Cayman is our official partner when it comes to hurricane season. And we encourage our media partners to stay connected to us so we can ensure we're sharing accurate and timely information. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. Danny.
I agree. I mean, again, things being said today, making sure you know what your hazard at your home is. So your elevation of your home, if you're on the coast, know what your risks are, because again, you can't wait to the last minute to be running to a shelter. As John says, you have to be there. It's first come, first serve. So at the end of the day, that we only have 8% of shelter capacity in Grand Cayman. We're working with a lot of the private companies, but still at this point, public shelters only house 8%. So you need to be there early. You need to be bunkered down. You need to have your supplies. You need to know what to take to a shelter, and also have your hurricane supplies at home. There's nothing worse than scrambling at the supermarket, 24 hours beforehand, because you just don't need that stress. Make sure the kids are involved in the plan, make sure that the animals are involved in the plan, make sure you're looking out for your neighbors and the vulnerable people around you. It's just so critical. People around you may need more help than you do, so make sure you're accounting that into your time management before a storm. As Anisha says, there's some great resources on our website, caymanprepared.ky. We also have Facebook and social media, Twitter and Instagram. So there's a lot of information coming out there, but we're really pleading with the public, just be ready for the season. And don't take anything for granted. Don't be complacent. And just, again, we're here to help. So anything you want from hazard management, planning wise, we're very much here to help, and go to any service clubs or schools or whatever it is. Just call us up and invite us in, and we can tailor it to your own specific needs. But thank you, Ralph, and thank you all your listeners.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. John, in the final words.
Well, I'd like to, there are two things that I want to just touch on real quick. Number one, let's big up our superwoman there, Danny Coleman, and HMCI, and the fantastic job that they've done over there, and the level of enthusiasm that they've got for their work. Yeah. Cayman has a very solid hurricane plan, okay? And you've got a very dedicated set of disaster managers that really have invested a lot in there. That plan takes into consideration just about every aspect of life. Mm-hmm. I mean, from animals to medicine to all kinds of things. So the plan is there to help everybody, and just don't be a problem to the plan. Okay, things like going in shelters early, protecting your house, and taking care of things. These are on you, but the disaster managers have done their job. Okay, whether it's issuing warnings or all of the public awareness and everything else that we do. Okay. The second part is that I know we're talking about an average season, and over the last number of years, we've been having some that have been blowing the season totals away. We've been setting numerous records from way back in 2005 and what have you. Always remember, it only takes one. Okay. Don't look at the forecast and go, well, we're going to have an average season, or we're going to have below an average season. We got El Nino, so we're safe. No. Only takes one. The season might give you one Category 5 hurricane, and then the Hurricane Center will tell me, hey, John, you had an average season. But that Category 5 hurricane came to the Cayman Islands. God forbid.
Mm-hmm.
And from our point of view, we would never consider that an average season.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate you. Well, folks, I really appreciate all of you coming on today and highlighting these important topics and educating me. I've learned so much. I'm going to go back to my study book and get ready for the hurricane season. I hope to have you back again sometime, maybe in about a month or two, when we see some activity, or maybe not, but it's always about being prepared. Thank you very much. I want to wish you a very good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, all. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, listeners.
You're welcome.
Red light.
Yeah.
Na, 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 na.
The sun is up, the sun is up. The sun is up and it's smiling. Another clear blue perfect day.
Paradise.
A warm breeze from the ocean
Breeze blows your troubles away.
East to Wednesday. Oh yeah.
A walk on the white sandy beaches.
A call from the turquoise sea. You know you're right where you're meant to be. If you find yourself believing, if you find yourself still dreaming, if you find yourself in love with life, you found yourself in Cayman kind. We're in Cayman kind. Are you Cayman kind? Living in Cayman kind. If you find yourself believing, Cayman kind. If you find yourself still dreaming, Cayman kind. The sun is up, and it's the sun is up,
Cayman time.
blow your troubles away. If you find yourself believing, Cayman kind. I wanna walk with you
Paradise.
on the white sandy beaches.
The sun is up and it's smiling. Another clear blue perfect day. Paradise.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh. Hold my hand tonight. I'm so in love with you. Make me feel alright. change. One thing remains the same. I'm so in love with you. Sometimes it's hard to give of yourself. It's not what you want, it's what you get. Love the one you with, you'll see it will fit. Time you love them more for what you need. Hold my hand tonight. I'm so in love with you. Make me feel alright. I'm so in love with you. Time goes on and seasons they change. One thing remains the same. I'm so in love with you. Sometimes it's hard to give of yourself. Sometimes it's hard to give. It's not what you want, it's what you get. It's what you get. It's what you get. It's what you get. Love the one you with, you'll see it will fit. It's what you get every time. In time you love them more for what you did. Hold my hand tonight. I'm so in love with you. Make me Well, 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 well. Yesterday I was broke. Today I got paper beyond your dreams. That's gone up in smoke. And everything ain't what it seemed. Real comeback story. Come back, come back, come back. Real comeback story. Yesterday I was womanless. Today you checking out my beauty queen. Who job bless I say no man taste. I believe that for real. Real comeback story. Come back, come back, come back. Real comeback story. Yesterday I was walking the block. Today you checking out my chariot. And some wanting what I've got. You put nothing in this pot. Real comeback story. Come back, come back, come back. Real comeback story. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Yesterday I was broke. Today I got paper beyond your dreams. That's gone up in smoke. And everything ain't what it seems. Real comeback story. Real comeback story. Real comeback story.
Welcome back to Cayman Conversations. For the last 25 minutes, we're listening to some great Cayman music. Of course, we heard from Mrs. Stuart Wilson and Lamy and a group of Cayman kind singers. In our next segment, Dr. Andy Francis, Executive Director, Public Works Department, Construction Trades and Training Center, returns to Cayman Conversations with some of the winners from the recent skills competition to talk about their experience. We'll bring in Mr. Francis right now. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
And how are you doing?
I'm hoping you can hear us.
I can hear you. Not seeing it too well, but our radio listeners and Bobo will be definitely satisfied with with what they're hearing. But we understand this is using technology sometimes a little difficult. But the important is to speak about what happened recently. Just let us know how it turned out.
Could you repeat? We heard a little bit about speaking about the competition that I'm trying to hear correctly.
Yes, that's correct. You wanted to know how it turned out. How was the event? Was it well attended? How did the winners feel about winning? And then we can take it from there and talk to some of the winners themselves.
Okay, awesome. So it was well attended. It was a couple months in planning. It was planned to be in line with what happens internationally. So internationally, not just locally, there are other competitions, other nationalities in the Caribbean that do world skills as much as we do here in the Cayman Islands. It is a showcase of what the skills of the day and current skills may be, right? So it not only showcased the youngsters' skills, but current skills that are on display, new emerging trends that are on display. Um, Students would have been engaged in skills like masonry, and that is coupled with brick and block laying, air conditioning and refrigeration, plumbing, electrical installation, carpentry. And what it does for that student is it takes them from a green stage where they are doing their probably getting ready for their final assessments now, and to give them that opportunity to it's almost a leapfrog opportunity to do a little bit better in what their specialization is. I can tell you from a coaching point of view, taking a youngster from level one, which is our introductory stage, and bringing them onto the international stage, it is something that warrants commendation on their part. They would have taken themselves and thrown themselves into the competition that a lot of persons would generally shy away from. Even seasoned veterans who are in the construction industry would have probably said, no, I'm not going to go put my skills on display or as a test like that.
Well, of course, and also we have to applaud them for their efforts and the achievements. Can you speak to some of the achievements? And you've brought some of the winners with you. Can you just
Yeah.
introduce them so we can have a few words with them? And also, as you can see, we got some slides with some of the prizes being given by the minister.
Right.
And maybe we
So,
can speak to them later on.
so with me, I have Dalbert and Samuel, two different skill areas. Dalbert had done masonry. Samuel had done air conditioning and refrigeration systems. Both are gold medalists. Both have completed and had won first place prizes in the competition. Dalbert, do you want to tell them about your preparation process and how you went about executing on the day?
When we were getting ready, we had to learn how to put up a template, which wasn't easy, but we had to do it. So we started off with a basic non-curved wall, and after we learned that, we used a little jig to achieve the curve, and then after we practiced many times, we went and did it, and yeah, that was it.
Yeah. So what he mentioned, just to emphasize a little bit more on what that jig is. That jig is like a compass setup, and it's somewhat different from your regular straight block wall. It gives the design of the project would include some amount of regular work, normal tendencies in the industry, and then it should have somewhat of a variation of application, new application, and different methods and current trends. So normally designer projects would have those are 3 or 4 aspects, and they executed brilliantly.
Okay.
Samuel?
Albert, yes. Samuel, yes, go right ahead.
Hello.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, so for the AC and refrigeration competition, in the weeks beforehand, we did a lot of preparation, really helping us to master the basics of what AC is. So Mr. Green actually was my teacher that taught me how exactly to familiarize myself with the tools and the equipment that we'd be using, as well as the unit itself. So we did a lot of learning what the tools are, learning how the equipment works, learning what we can do to make that equipment work, learning how to troubleshoot, And in the weeks that the weeks that were following up to the skills competition, it was just a lot of repetition, just so we could familiarize ourselves with it, and just finding any problem that would possibly arise on the day of the skills competition. So when the day came, it was quite simple. We went and we executed, and I think I did do pretty well. So yeah.
A funny thing, Samuel had a little hiccup on the competition. I mean, he was a bit nervous, but you can tell him a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So on the unit, I put up one of the units, and the unit started leaking, and I couldn't figure it out for the longest while, and I couldn't wrap my head around why it was leaking and why the system was acting the way it was. But at the end, I did it over again. I ran the tests, and I ran all the necessary things that I was taught, and I figured it out very, very close to the end of my whole run at the skills competition. I figured it out, and I was like, well, I mean, I didn't see this at first, but here it is now. I see what happened, and so I learned something from it, and I know going forward, this is something that I would be able to look for in the future. So yeah.
Were you nervous during the competition, or you were comfortable that you would have achieved your goals?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So were you or were you not? Were you nervous?
I was quite nervous because it was my first time, and the competition was pretty heavy, so I was a little bit nervous, but I pulled through. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the persistence paid off because you were able. You didn't give up. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Persistence always pay off, and you pulled through, and you actually became first place in AC and refrigeration. So I congratulate you, and I wish you, luck in the future with whatever you're gonna do. Do you believe that there is a role for what you do and for your skills in the community?
Could you repeat that?
Yes. Do you believe that there's a role for individuals such as yourself to perform your skills in the community?
I definitely believe so.
Because you do servicing.
Yes, sir.
Locally.
I've done a lot of servicing on my own time. I've worked on cars, worked on personal ACs at home and at other people's homes. And I've used the knowledge that I've learned to actually perform in the working world. So yes, I definitely believe so.
Okay, so you actually contribute to society, and that's what it's all about. When you can take what you've learned and really turn it into a career or some form of income stream, and that's very, very important. Talbert?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Congratulations on your masonry award. And how long have you been working in masonry?
Since the beginning of the program, so since September.
So just over 6 months, and you were able to achieve what you did at at that level that you became a winner. And same question for you: you can use this masonry experience in a future career?
Yeah, because construction is the largest industry in the Cayman Islands. So, and since our primary use of material is concrete, and all houses and buildings need to be hurricane proof and all that, it'd be useful to learn how to build walls. And even if it was just like a simple wall for a house,
yes,
it'd be very useful. So yeah.
Yeah, I know some people want to know why many of the houses in America get destroyed so easily. But as we can know, the conditions and the rules for building in the Cayman Islands are very rigid, and cement walls are what definitely can give us that level of comfort during hurricane season, that we are protected. And building walls is important. Everyone's home is normally built with walls. That's good. We have a few videos, a few photos. Could you please just give some descriptions for our listeners on the radio on Bobo, and so that they can know what we are watching as we go through those photos, Mr. Green?
Yeah, so that's a photo slide of, I think that is Yeah, that's the award ceremony. Yes, that is the
Yes.
award ceremony. I just recognizing the room. Yes, that person would have done carpentry, and the carpentry itself, the competition itself was judged by industry players in the industry. So we had judges that came from very profound construction companies. So we didn't just put on the competition ourselves and judge it ourselves and coach it ourselves. We were in dialogue and in close contact with our industry partners, Dart, Andrew Group, Phoenix, you name it. Arch and Godfrey, they were on board and they were hand in hand with us with what is necessary. The other slide is Caleb. He would have gotten second place in electrical installation. The electrical installation competition was really stiff. We had to have internal separation. That's Dalbert.
Okay, that's
Dalbert
great. Yeah.
was the proud winner of his masonry certification. Well, certification participation. That's Romeo as well. He did plumbing, the plumbing practical task. He was the winner of that
Okay.
competition. And that is, I'm trying to see who that is. That's Malik Parchment. And Malik
Well,
is our student of the year, actually. And he has also thrown himself into the competition and had done excellently. He's also the winner of carpentry.
okay. Right. Right.
That's Samuel. He topped the Dart Award, and the Dart Award was for air conditioning and refrigeration. I must add that the prizes that these students receive were really awesome. And they're tangible prizes too. They're tools for their particular trade and in direct relation to their particular trade of choice. And they were well received.
Very good.
That's Jarin, and he would have come second place in the air conditioning and refrigeration set of skills. Joshua Bent was the winner of the electrical competition. He would have received the Public Works Award.
I think we saw this one again. Yes. Well, while we flick through those slides, I'll just read again the winners for those who are listening on the radio. Just want to know. In carpentry, the first place went to Malik Parchment, and that was sponsored by Arch and Godfrey. In AC and refrigeration, the first place went to Samuel White, that was sponsored by Dart, and second place went to Jerome Greenwich. In electrical, first place went to Joshua Bent, and that was sponsored by PWD. And the second place went to Caleb Davidson Ebanks. In plumbing, first place went to Romeo Thomas, that was sponsored by Dart. And second place went to Timothy McKenzie, sponsored by PWD. Masonry, the first place went to Dalbert Johnson, sponsored by Phoenix. And the second place went to Timothy McKenzie, sponsored by PWD. We want to say congratulations to all of those winners. And how many contestants were in this event? And what happened to those who did not win?
For those who did not win, they would have been still awarded a certificate of participation. So nobody walked off empty-handed. The amount of participants in the competition was about 15. We had to have some amount of elimination before finals. So not everybody went to finals, but there were more persons than you may be seeing in your picture right now. So it was very well supported.
So I want to encourage those who didn't make it to the first and second place to continue doing what you're doing and try again next time. You never know. Persistence pays off, as it did for the gentleman right here, and it's so important. And to know that this skill that we are displaying is something that was never even talked about before. In the Cayman Islands, it's mostly banking, insurance, and those other white collar skills. Now we have PWD with awards for first and second place winners in carpentry, electrical, AC refrigeration, and masonry. How good do you feel about this, Mr. Green?
I'm overwhelmed, to be honest. In Germany, if you use those economies as reference, it is the skill of that economy that would be the driving force of the economy. If you're not building as an economy, then you're basically going nowhere. You are at a platform where you are basically stagnant. So construction in itself is the driving force of every economy in the world. And with us investing in young Caymanians, having them hone those skills, it says a lot. It says a lot of any government at all, whether they have the will to invest in that youth to drive that very same economy and that very same skill level that is also needed. It speaks highly also of public works to have the drive and the will for over 8 years now to be running this apprenticeship program. Since its inception, we can proudly say that it has been consistent with our applications, persons who have applied for this course, and our numbers that we have turned out into the industry, supported by our industry partners. It's even more reason to be more proud of these youngsters. Many of these youngsters would have moved on to higher level learning in England, in the US, and we are definitely proud of them, each and every one of them.
Gentlemen, Talbot and Samuel, do you have friends that are in this class as well, or do you have friends that show an interest of joining the classes just as you did? And who encouraged you to join?
Well, actually, I do have friends that are interested, and I also have friends that are in the program. And the person who encouraged me to join that place was actually one of the people who used to work at Public Works. They know my family members, and they kind of reached out to them, and they were like, this is probably a good opportunity for your son, and I gave it a try, and here I am.
Yes, and Talbot.
Yeah, I got plenty of friends that work here as well with me, and my mom encouraged me to join to further my education in the construction industry and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I give my thanks to my mom.
Yes. And I applaud her, and I think it's wise advice, and I would encourage individuals such as yourself to join up to these courses. I mean, knowledge is power, and the amount of skills you can have, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm a jack of all trades. I mean, I could do anything around my house, but I'm a banker by my profession was banking. Now I'm in media. It just goes to show that you can do anything, and every job is important. No job is better than the others. And like I was saying at the last interview we had, some of those jobs that you're training for pay a lot more than those jobs with a white collar and a tie in those institutions. And it's true.
That is
if
so
you get anybody to do technical work on your air conditioning unit, the hourly fee is a sizable chunk. And you probably know that. And no one can live without air conditioning in this day and age. So you can see the importance, not only about the money that you're making, but do you think Mr. Green, that there's other things to be achieved from our young people going into these industries?
Definitely. With the industry growing every day, the use of technology. And it is so wide. It is such a wide um, scope that these youngsters are embarked on. So, with that being said, and with that future up just up the road, we at Public Works have also invested not only because we have the will and the skill to actually write our own courses, but we have also seen the need to improve on courses and be innovative with new courses. For example, knowing that we're not just teaching raw skills, but the added on skills as well, we are in active phase of introducing architectural drawing, for example. We have also had introduced and continue to offer new managerial courses in construction site management. And that is our level 3 programs. And we will continue, we will be continuously doing so and continuously improving as the industry changes and the demand for new and innovative skills arise. I will also tell you that we have a fully equipped laboratory that we are teaching welding and fabrication from. We are also teaching alternative energy, advanced pressurized pumping systems. These are unorthodox skills that you don't normally hear, skills that we more or less would have to import into the Cayman Islands. And that is what the vision of Dr. Andy Francis and the team is all about, to meet the needs of the economy, meet the needs of the industry, to be exact, right? So that is where our direction is. That is the direction with which we're going, and I think is a positive one.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you very much for for being with us, talking with us today, and congratulations to the gentlemen and other winners of the PWD competition. We hope to see you again soon, and thanks for coming. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining Cayman Connect Conversations today. Hope you had a great time with us this afternoon. See you tomorrow for some great conversations. Goodbye.